When it comes to my thoughts on violence, I tend to lean towards an old cliche. That violence is, at its core, vile, detestable, and abhorrent. But that feeling is gone whenever I encounter within me a passionate urge for retribution. Violence is wrong, we say, while we worship and boast about our homegrown professionals whenever the opportunity presents. While we are told time and time again of situations where violence is deemed not only as justifiable, but as just. Defending one's home, one's loved ones, one's life. Violence is quite often sold to us as both just and necessary. Because when defending against those who are more than willing to ignore the inherent abhorrence of violence, violence is often required in response if we wish to see tomorrow. This is often when my thoughts on violence turn to larger questions. What of capital punishment? What of the preemptive strike? What of retribution, revenge? What of second chances? What of mercy? What of murder, the killing of kin? Sometimes this form of violence is done with passion. An emotional retaliation of swift destruction upon thine enemy. More often, though, if we're honest with ourselves, it is frighteningly dispassionate. The result of a cold trigger pulled or an equally cold pen stroke. In either case, the pain is inescapable. Doesn't matter how you did it or why you did it. It will fill the aggrieved with hateful spite. To hate with a passion. To hate those who stole from you the most precious thing to you. Or that same level of passionate hate towards those who you believe are on their way right now to take it from you. In any case, this hateful passion provides a powerful and inescapable environment for sadism to thrive. Who wouldn't want to see the ones who took their loved ones tortured and ruined as recompense for all the hearts that they shattered? But they too have loved ones. Loved ones who, like the currently aggrieved, will feel that same passionate hate towards those who stole away that most precious to them. And so it is that killing begets killing, and death begets death. To end the cycle of violence, one must have to choose not to engage in violence. But what of the truly wicked, beloved or not? Death for the wicked puts a guaranteed end to their wickedness, although we may never be certain that their wickedness had not already ended. Perhaps they had reached their opportunity for redemption, their opportunity to do good, to be good. And had they just been given a chance, they would have taken that chance and done good. But while we're busy talking about second chances, there is an urgency that has to be taken into consideration. If you take the time to be a bleeding heart in the face of those who shout from the rooftops for your blood, can you truly be surprised if your heart ends up bleeding? Is it not safer to assume the threat is legitimate and act accordingly? Violence, the act or threat of it, breeds urgency, and with that, an inescapable need to perform violence back at it. But at the same time, given the presence of so many tragic backstories, in those quiet moments between deaths, should we not at least try to take time to learn and to empathize and to give second chances when we can? Is it truly better for our souls to forgive? To see to it that those who've done wrong, no matter how wrong, have the opportunity to redeem themselves? To see to it that the crimes they committed are paid with earthly actions, hard work, and a dedication to righting the wrong, even in spite of the knowledge that it can never truly be righted? It's a very romantic notion when you think about it. To see the very worst creatures among us be forgiven for their sins. Because if they can be forgiven, if they can be given the love and patience and compassion it requires to be forgiven, then there surely must be hope for the rest of us. But how convenient is that? A phrase used many a time by an abuser are the words, "Just give me another chance." Why should those who've suffered be subject to the unsureness of a future where the ones who murdered one child, while continuing to call for the death of the other, get to live on, hinging solely on a flimsy hope that the one calling for blood has a sudden change of heart? What of rotten, hate-filled ideologies hell-bent on genocide? Or oppressive governments who've reaped the benefits of committing them in the past? Each preaching in bad faith towards the value of redemption and second chances, all with absolutely no desire to change or atone at all. Large, intimidating collectives, each of them at one time or another, working towards deliberately violent ends. Large collectives made up of multiple individuals, each capable of making violence, and who are all quite comfortable shouting for it. Large collectives made up of individuals. Individuals who each bring with them a reason that brought them there. When is there room to de-radicalize, to save people from the depths of these hateful or genocidal ideologies? Particularly when it is those who found their way into these hateful corners of the world not because they leapt forward towards them, but instead wound up there due to clumsy, uncoordinated stumbling over life's rough terrain. When is it too late to improve the behavior of someone who is shouting from the rooftops for your blood? Who does so alongside those who, in many cases, already have blood on their hands? Should a chance be extended to those clumsy individuals? I think it depends on the clumsy individual and the manner of pratfalls that led them there. However, regardless of how you ended up there, if you are carrying a flag of hate, a flag bathed in a blood-drenched desire for violence, the stakes are high. Urgency becomes an important strategy for survival. And sometimes it becomes necessary or unavoidable to plow through a hate-filled thicket than to take the time to tenderly prune it. And so it is with all of these complicated questions surrounding violence, surrounding death, that I end up entirely unable to disparage many who reject pacifism. For the oppressed, one less oppressor is one less gun pointed at your head, or one less signature on your papers for the gas chamber. For the abused, their abuser dead is one less sleepless night spent wondering if the children will be next, if you don't survive the abuse. I can't disparage those who hope or call for violence in these cases, even when it is done so passionately. For with the death of the wicked comes no more of their wickedness. And with that end, a peace in that certainty. And yet, I find myself equally unable to disparage those who do hold out hope that even the most heinous of monsters may someday become human again. For those who take to life with a Hippocratic oath, who offer aid to any, who strive to promote healing in the enemy, all in the hopes that their actions will stop any cycles of retaliation. I'm not going to disparage those who desire not to bloody their hands, not out of an apolitical apathy, but out of a desire to uncorrupt the corrupted. To convert the hateful to the side of love and tolerance, increasing the number of people who choose to do good, all in an attempt to stack the odds against any hate-filled victories in this never-ending cycle of violence. Choosing not to further the cycle by engaging in violence is not cowardly nor apathetic. It is a hard choice built on the truth that violence begets violence and is a commitment to ending that cycle. And so it is that I have to say, I don't believe that any of these perspectives should be universally applied. The ebb and flow of life is far too chaotic. But each one has, at its core, an importance, a relevance, an integrity, and a purpose. Each one recognizes the severity of the situation and is, fundamentally, approaching the same goal: to minimize violence in all of its forms to only its most dire necessity. Which means each perspective is a necessary contribution to the conversation and the larger contexts of violence and its perpetuity. As for your own perspective on pacifism or violence, murder or mercy, I'll have to leave that to you to figure out. As for me, this has been a pretentious perspective.